Today, at the end of the show, I'll tell you how you can join the Goodbye Teacher Tired Challenge at coolcatteacher.com/tired. I'll tell you more about it at the end of the show. But for now, let's get started. We're counting down the top shows of 2017. And in at number 10 are 5 ways to adjust teaching to how the brain learns with Ramona Persaud.
The 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with Vicki Davis. Every weekday, you'll learn powerful, practical ways to be a more remarkable teacher today.
Today we're talking to Ramona Persaud, producer and director of the documentary Gray Matters. Now, Ramona, in your documentary, you really take a look at how we need to adjust teaching to how the brain learns. So today we're going to talk about 5 ways to adjust our teaching to how the brain learns. And if teachers want to know more about this, they can take a look at your documentary, Gray Matters. So, Ramona, thanks for coming on the show. And what is your first way we can adjust?
Vicki, thank you so much for having me. So I think the first thing teachers need to realize is if a brain is stressed, the brain isn't learning. So if you have a kid that's come into class who had an argument with his mom, or missed a meal, or didn't finish his homework, or you can insert whatever potential stress that could have occurred in many of our students' lives. They have very complicated lives. So they show up to class and you go, okay, great, we're here and we're going to do erosion, we're going to do math. Except your student may physically be in your classroom, but they're not focused on what you're doing. And as a teacher, it's important to kind of realize, something's going on with this particular kid, and I need to figure out how to get them back to the classroom.
Oh, that is so true. I call it, they come into my classroom already on the ledge, ready to jump. And You can't teach a jumper. You have to get a jumper to step back from the ledge.
Absolutely.
What's your second one?
The second one would be to realize that the brain is a patterning organ. And so when you're teaching something new, for example, you need to find something that student already knows so they can map it onto it. So if you were to meet someone new and you were explaining something, you would say, oh, it's kind of like, right? So you're trying to find something they know already. And so in teaching terminology, it's sort of mapping the new knowledge to the known knowledge. And you'll see this a lot. You have a kid from, say, a different culture. And you're going, okay, how do I explain this American holiday, for example? Okay, it's kind of like, you dig down to kind of go, where is that similarity, that connection that, the student is going to make?
Absolutely. And I had a professor in college, Dr. Adler, who called it the information conversion process. And he said, you don't just take information and it's not attached to everything else. You collapse it onto everything you already know. So we do have to relate it, don't we?
Yes, it's the only way it's going to stick. And once you kind of help the student make that connection, it then it resonates with them and they will recall it better because they'll think back, oh, it's kind of like when Miss Davis said, blah, 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 right? And so they have this thing to map it to. So they have a situation and a circumstance and some broader context to fill that information into.
So we don't want the brain stressed. We want to understand that the brain likes patterns. What's our third?
One is to realize that our brain is changing. I think when I was a kid, and certainly lots of teachers, said the same thing, which was, oh, you use 10% of your brain. And I always thought, well, really? Because there's a whole 90%. What do we do then? And the reality is our brain is changing. So as we continue to learn, we make new connections. We are consistently changing. I'm changing my brain right now. I'm doing something new, right? So it's important for a teacher to look, because I think if you have a kid who struggles in your class, the thing is that kid has failed more tests than they have passed. And it's tough for them to realize I can change this outcome. One of the kids I worked with in the film was a high school senior. And at the beginning of the year, she says, I hate school. Learning is not for me. I don't know what I'm going to do. Maybe I'll go in the Army. I just don't know. Learning is not for me. And she repeated this. And the problem was she was a poor tester and she had some challenges. But by working with the teacher, Jeremy Metler, by the end of that school year, she had made honor roll twice.
Wow.
And that is mind blowing. And that was, she had no idea she could do that.
So you mean growth mindset? Is that what you're meaning by brain is changing?
Basically, as you are learning information, you are literally creating new neurons and dendrites. Anything that you learn it's going to rewire your brain. The problem with a struggling student is you have to overcome this idea of no matter what I do, I'm going to fail. But if a teacher can recognize that, oh, I see you're struggling. How do I help you find a different way? So then you go back to the patterning. Okay, well, we need to find some different patterns. Okay, let's remember our brain is changing. We can change our brain. So remind that student that nothing is set in stone. Yes, you're not getting it now, but let's try these different things to help you get it, right? And it's kind of a bob and weave situation for teachers because, okay, you're not getting it, you get it, you're not getting it, you know what I mean? So you have a classroom of students with differing abilities, and how do you meet them all where they are?
Yeah, that's a challenge. Okay, what's our fourth?
Your fourth one is this idea of repetition and teaching for mastery. A lot of folks will talk about this rote learning and, oh, we don't need to have rote learning, except you need to have a lot of different ways to practice new material, which is where mastery comes. And the key is to not have it feel like repetition. So here you are, third grade, you are learning fractions. Okay, well, here are the basics of fractions. Okay, we're going to try it with geometry. We are going to use it with measurements, and you go through all of these different ways. Whereas you're still teaching the same foundational concept, but you're doing it in different ways.
So it's really that we do need repetition. We just don't need monotony in repetition. We need to repeat it in a variety of ways. Okay, so what's what's our fifth, Ramona?
And so your fifth way is to look at the ways in which we assess. So we all have to have ways to check and see, are students getting it? But it doesn't just have to be the one single test. It doesn't just have to be the A, B, C, or D. Maybe you can do a project in a classroom. Maybe you can do a portfolio. And the more the kids have some choice in this, the more engaged they are. So to go back to the assessment piece, assessment is extremely important, and we do need to know that they're getting it. But let's not make it only a test. Let's find different ways to do it. Let's make a game out of it. Let's do a play in history. History is very open to plays, for example. Let's get them out and moving if it's a geography type. But let's find different ways to have them show that they have learned the material.
Well, teachers, it's really an exciting day because all of the neuroscience that's really studying how students learn. And yes, there's so many things we already understand as teachers, but I think there's some important pieces that we have to remember here that Ramona shared if we're going to be that remarkable teacher we all want to be, that the brain does get stressed and we have to be careful about it, that the brain is a patterning organ and it needs those relationships, that the brain is constantly changing, but our students also have to understand that their brain can change and be open to learning, that we have to repeat without being monotonous. And we have to assess in a variety of ways. And, remarkable teachers, this is just great teaching. The documentary is Gray Matters. And Ramona, thank you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Vicki.
We teachers have too much to do, and it's taken me years to really understand where to focus my time, so I didn't just live in my classroom. Well, I've learned so much from my friend Angela Watson as part of her 40-hour work week club. Now, I still work quite a bit more than 40 hours, but it's not the 70 and 80 that I used to work, and a lot of the tips from her club really have helped me out. Now, the club isn't open until December 30th for enrollment, but she has a new helpful free resource, Goodbye Teacher Tired, 5 days to doing fewer things better. To get this free resource, just go to coolcatteacher.com/tired to learn more. Or if you want to learn about her club, go ahead to coolcatteacher.com/40.
Thank you for listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. You can download the show notes and see the archive at coolcatteacher.com/podcast. Never stop learning.